Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Rejuvenate Your Spirit with Sounds of the Archangels. Experience crystal singing bowl healings for each of the 4 seasons to alchemize your emotions. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I've been on a journey of really discovering the depths of sound healing in recent years. It's been an exciting area for Shift to explore and deepen, and we're going to get to really explore not only some frontier theory about how sound healing happens, but some really deep experiences of very angelic frequencies. We're going to get to do that with a pioneer in many different fields, but her name is Charleene Closshey. She's classically trained multi-instrumentalist. She's an award-winning composer, vocalist, actress, and author. It's quite a list of titles, and I think you're going to really love her. So Charleene, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I know you want to, normally we sort of dive in with talking, but because you have quite an array of allies around you that you want to introduce us to and create sacred space, why don't we actually begin today with you and the bowls?
Absolutely. I love this idea too of always being surrounded by powerful allies that you can see and some that you can't. So whenever you do actually begin to see these allies, it'll make a little more sense. But in the interim, let's actually go ahead and take a deep breath just to recenter ourselves, and then exhale and let it go. And in doing so, we're going to go ahead and just, at your own time, close your eyes and begin to bring your attention to the place of your heart. Taking a deep breath in, holding that breath in, relaxing the heart. Then exhaling, relaxing the heart. Holding that breath out, allowing the heart to relax. Relaxing the body. And inhale, bringing back in more life. Allowing your breath now to begin to shift, to flow in your own time, in your perfect rhythm. Bringing your attention now to the center of your head, allowing your attention to gently rise into that area of your beautiful brain, noticing, witnessing your left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, gently pulsing, almost as if dancing. Imagine or feel yourself beginning to breathe into the area of your head. Witnessing the breath moving up between the 2 hemispheres, echoing up and out, around, back down, up, out, down, around. As you feel your brain pulsing, undulating, see if you can also experience that heart center again, feeling the beating of your heart as it begins to pulse in time, with the beating of life through your brain. Just witnessing, allowing. Taking a deep breath in, holding that breath in, relaxing the heart, relaxing the mind, and gently exhale, holding that breath out. Relaxing the heart and relaxing the mind. In your own time, return to your normal breath.
Beautiful. What a wonderful way to begin our time together. And it almost feels a little sacrilegious to speak afterwards, but we will do so. And yeah, that I want to say first, I've never heard so many singing bowls played together before, and also guided.
Yeah.
So it was almost like I could feel the energy filling up different parts of my field. It's like there's almost like acupuncture needles or something going like, oh, that's opening there, that's opening there. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what's going on when you're working with this. I mean, most
Yes,
people are used to a single bowl and a single tone.
indeed.
It's more meditative, maybe.
Yes. So, Stephen, what beautiful observation you made. Thank you for making that. It's really interesting working with these bowls. So, in front of you are 13 chromatically tuned crystal singing bowls, and behind me are 6 more. So, we have 19 bowls altogether. And my background's in classical Western music. I started playing piano when I was 2. I read music before I could read words. And so music has always been a part of my life. It's what I studied. My first career as a professional violinist. And music is how I understand the world. It's how I synthesize information. It's how I see patterns in life and feel and hear patterns too. So whenever it came to being able to connect with the crystal bowls, I wanted a little bit more than just a few tones here and there, because whilst single tones can be so powerful and we can entrain aspects of our physiology to these specific frequencies, these specific pitches, having all this, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and the gang in my head, and playing them for decades, I knew that I wanted to approach sound healing from a slightly different perspective, hence chromaticism. And that's what these bowls are. So basically what you see are all of the white keys and all of the black keys in 1 octave on a piano, plus some extra ones on the top and the bottom. And why that's important is that it gives us an opportunity to define space, to define these relationships. And, if life is a series of patterns, how do we connect to these patterns? So really my classical music background is what was the genesis of having so many bowls and approaching the bowls from a place of harmonization, and not just harmonics as we know them, but harmony, really bringing in harmony into a space where we can move energy in a real and powerful way. And like you said, it felt like you were connecting to different acupuncture points, because you were. And the bowls allow us to move, to transition up and down our entire physical system, especially when we connect into the harmonic series or the overtone series, which is a fascinating topic in and of itself, but it allows us to move beyond a single tone and bringing in greater expanding resonance.
It makes sense. It's sort of like a crystal bowl orchestra that you're harmonizing all the different instruments together. So maybe share a little bit more about, the overtones and where in our bodies and energy systems are the different bowls actually resonating? Do they sort of tend to localize with one chakra, or just to say a little bit more about what's the deeper understanding of what each is doing?
Yeah, such a great question. And oh my gosh, and a crazy area to explore. I'm actually working on my doctorate in this, so kind of fun. But so the idea of a single pitch, if we go back to the traditional understanding of frequency in relation to our energy centers or our chakras, most sound healing enthusiasts understand that these 7 primary bowls generally connect to our 7 energy centers, and it's a beautifully loose interpretation of activating these different chakra points. So C connecting with our base, the first chakra, D with the second, C with the third, that power center, F with the heart center, G with our throat, our 5th energy center, A with the 6th, and then of course B with the 7th. But if I just let this bowl ring, doesn't it feel like it's leading somewhere that we want a little bit more? The cool thing is that whenever we introduce this final octave, we create a container in which has a direct correlation to the container of our physical body. So this octave and everything within begins to touch on frequencies based on the harmonic series. So the harmonic series tells us that even though I may be playing one note, you hear one pitch. Oh, that's an F, right? Connects to my heart. There we go. The interesting thing about pitch is that we're actually connecting to more than one note. Notes that move on and live through, it's an infinite repetition of patterns. We hear that F, we hear the F above it, an octave above it. We hear the 5th above that. We hear the 4th above that, a major third above that, a minor third, etc. And it continues on to infinity. It's a mathematically calculated understanding of how sound moves together. So our ears perceive sounds in a way that, well, I heard an F play, but I can tell that if I were to sing an F, la, actually, ma, if I were to sing an F, it would be different than if I'm playing the bowl, or if a violin sounded it, or an oboe played it. And that's because of these harmonic series and how these overtones shimmer, shine, or present themselves. So the cool thing with the bowls is that there's actually minimal overtones. So what happens is that when we begin to fuse sounds together, we begin to vibrate frequencies between these notes and other bowls that are already resonating. So how I had talked about F, if I were to say a 5th above F, for instance, I'm going into a C. Well, these C's begin to kind of shimmer and shake. And sitting here in front of it, I can feel the C's respond even if I'm just playing one note. So that's a little bit of an advanced musicological understanding, but it's really the beginning of the science. It breaks down how these tones work together, as you can imagine, then to begin moving in different cells of our body that have their own unique systemic frequency and rhythm within our bodies. But we're in this container in which we can play.
Well, it's super illuminating and really fascinating, getting into the science. And I know you wanted to bring in something that I haven't really heard or seen much about, which is also the seasonality, that the different bowls have a different way of activating and working with our human body and energy system in different seasons. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that.
So everything in the universe is patterns, whether we're talking about sound, whether we're talking about sight or light, whether we're talking about a feeling or an emotion, whether we're talking about inhalation and exhalation. We all are connected to these patterns. And I love learning about patterns. In fact, one of my favorite quotes ever was Tony Robbins. He basically said, parents, if you can teach your kids how to find patterns, they're going to be set for life. And it's true, because once we can recognize where these fractal, for instance, patterns fit, we begin to see the connectivity of all. So if we go back actually to ancient antiquity, which is, think about Pythagoras, this idea of understanding music, how it flowed through the world, music as a source of life, music as the understanding of life. We can actually start to kind of break down how all this sorts of connect. So there are sounds of the seasons. And what I love about how we've arrived at this idea of the sound of the season is through patterns of the divine, specifically patterns of the archangels. But how did we get there? So back in the day, back in antiquity, when all the smart folks were trying to disseminate to people who might not have been on a spiritual path, the non-initiates, that there were greater things going on in the cosmos. How do you define that? How do you really connect people to that? Well, they did it through story. And so there was this understanding of an anthropomorphic understanding of how these classical structures played out. Today, we think of them as archetypes. Back then, they were the gods and goddesses. You know, gods and goddesses would show up and have drama with each other, just like people would show up and have drama with themselves. And so there was this connection to something greater, this pattern that existed beyond what we could see, yet we had a familiarity to. Well, eventually, these stories of the gods and goddesses, actually in Europe, it shifted to that of the archangels. So there was a direct correlate that was beginning to focus around the working of the cosmos, specifically the planetary forces, with those of the archangels. So there are an understanding of these greater myths into real and everyday lives and how it mattered. So for instance, we moved to a point of Archangel Michael or Michael connecting to the sun. We even named our day after him, Sunday. Gabriel connected to the moon, Monday. Samael, Mars, that passion, that intensity, connecting into Tuesday. Raphael, Mercury, Wednesday. Zadkiel, Jupiter, planet of abundance. Everybody loves Jupiter. Connecting with Thursday. Anael, Venus, Friday, depending on how you move into the weekend. Raphael, he connects us to Saturn, that the taskmaster, right? That really heavy energy, or Saturday. So whenever we started to move through all of this, we're beginning to see that there's just patterns that are repeating. And even in these patterns, there's a stage of evolution that we all want to connect to, right? So why is it that we want to use frequency? We want to expand our current state. We want to shift our current state. We want to feel better about our current state. We want to move away from something that was feeling as though it was heavier or bringing us down in some way. So how do we do that? We begin to vibrate specific frequencies. It's no different than the idea of bringing in specific prayers and connection in that way. So evolution is something that in many ways, it's just a repeated pattern. So even archangels, they have this idea that whilst they are here to empower and connect with mankind, they're also on their own spiritual journeys. And part of that is an evolutionary perspective too. So there's this idea that there are 7 primary archangels that rule over these 7 epochs of man. And these epochs, these time periods last about 300 to 350 years. And all of the archangels that I referenced, they all come through and they all share and connect to different time periods in hopes of being able to contribute to their own evolution, plus that of your and mine from a period of mankind. Well, from this 7 archangels, and you asked about the seasons, so let's get to the seasons. There's 4 that directly connect to our periods of time: spring, summer, fall, winter. And these archangels, Michael, fire. Right now I'm sitting in the fire of autumn, which happens to be, I don't know about you, but it's one of my favorite seasons. Gabriel, who's this beautiful, fluid, watery energy connecting us into winter, the stillness of winter. Raphael, connecting us through the air, this expansion into the spring, the revitalization. And then Uriel, who kind of steps in the place of Raphael. So Uriel steps in here for that heat of the summer. And a lot of this actually comes from the writings of Rudolf Steiner. He's a 20th century spiritualist, and kind of fun side note, he actually founded the Waldorf School. So a very different approach to understanding our spiritual and physical bodies in the world. And he's part of the Rosicrucian tradition, as well as some of the traditions that stem out of the Holy Grail. So really mystical Christian understanding. And one of the patterns that I really love as we're getting into the season is just seeing how all of this is connected. You're like, okay, why are we talking about gods and goddesses and then the archangels and then, well, here's a great example. If we know that life is a series of repeated patterns, let's see how they connect. So spring, let's take spring for instance. Spring, the revitalization of life, right? We're looking for regeneration. Things are healing. Spring connecting to Archangel Raphael. Interestingly enough, in the Kabbalah, Raphael, he's placed on the region of the tree of life, or the Kabbalists actually place the planet Mercury, which remember we said that Raphael is actually ruled and connects with the energy of Mercury. Now, back in Greek mythology, Mercury, the god, he has an attribute called the caduceus that we still use today and as this signifying modern medicine. Interesting. The name Raphael actually means God has healed. Interesting. Another thing about spring, for Christians, Easter, the great feast of the spring, it's when all of nature celebrates the resurrection of Christ, who is also the resurrection of all of life. So this is why when spring comes, there's this impetus to revitalize, to redo, renew, really set up for this next phase of our years. So whenever we understand that there is a natural rhythm to all of life, to every season of life, seasons that we're in physically, and sometimes even seasons that we're just in emotionally or mentally, we can begin to connect really deeply to them. And yes, there are different tonalities of the season. One of my favorite examples is actually from the classical music composer, Antonio Vivaldi. You've probably heard of him, the Four Seasons, right? It's one of the most fun seasonal pieces, because Vivaldi actually created a direct vibratory frequency connected to each season. So here's a little bit about that. So in classical music, one of the things that from a composition standpoint, we actually understand that different key signatures, which basically just means the number of naturals or sharps or flats, what notes you're going to play in a given time period and playing together, that's a key signature. So that they all have different colors and emotive responses within the physical system. So in Antonio Vivaldi's Spring, we actually start in the key of E major. Well, E major, what do I think about E major? Well, classically, we're taught that E major actually represents, it's almost an incomplete but forthcoming pleasure. Shouts of joy. There's a little bit of a quarrelsomeness as people kind of have a short fuse as new things are happening. The old's coming out, the new's coming in. Sounds a lot like spring. There's this boisterous delight. It's actually, we're quoted that full delight lies in E major, and it's considered one of the most powerful keys. Coincidence? I don't think so. As we move into summer, we actually begin to connect in Vivaldi's Four Seasons. We connect to the key of G minor. So G minor, actually, let me show you. So E major. There's a lightness, there's an openness to it. You can feel it in your system. Kind of like spring. We know something good is happening and we're coming out of the lull of the winter. But when we move into summer and things start to heat up, we actually shift, at least with Vivaldi's work, we shift into G minor. So it's interesting. There's a little bit of uncertainty about the future. There's a lot of hard work that comes. There's actually a lot of heat, a lot of fire that's going to begin to continue to shift and move during this time. Sometimes there's an unexpected thunderstorm that hits, that comes, totally a G minor vibe. Sometimes you feel like you might have failed a little bit. You got to catch up because there's this impending, you got to prepare for the autumn and the winter months as well. So this is where G minor fits in. Really interesting, kind of this urging us forward. Well, autumn, I said autumn's my favorite season. So for Vivaldi, autumn actually connects to that same place that we really visited in that first experience, to F major, our heart chakra. There's this reverence that seems to exist in the sound. It's a little bit of a religious or a spiritual sentimentality, kind of like that there's an end that's coming, and so you're going to be really present right here, right now. A beautiful piece, but also a tremendous element of light. And then when we move into the winter months, Vivaldi actually takes us into the place of F minor. It's a little chilly, it's a little cold. There's a lament specifically connected to a death, a need to move away so that a new transformation can come again. But in this very sleepy place, you almost begin to be lulled into this sense of slowing down. So tonally, the keys, the frequencies absolutely connect to our seasons. And just as we can connect to various seasons of life, we can also connect to direct seasons right here and right now.
What a brilliant explanation of all that. There were so many things that were synapsing together. I was like, oh, wow, that needs to connects to that. And so it's also one of the most interesting explanations of the archangels I've ever heard. I didn't know they were connected to specific days like that. And so that there's like this frequency pattern from the sort of the human level all the way up to the archangel level that sort of threads through.
Yes.
Really makes a lot of sense. And so when you're thinking about connecting with archangels, you're sort of asking in a way to harmonize with what's most needed, or the medicine of the moment, seasonally and personally, it sounds like. So you're sort of tuning in about which is going to balance or connect us to, because we don't want to be sort of working against the seasons, right? We want to be working with the seasons and with our own temperament, it sounds like, as well.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I also think it's interesting too, because sometimes we can be within the macrocosmic season, having our own microcosmic experience that doesn't necessarily coexist in a harmonious way. And sometimes it's generated because we're trying to force expectations of things that are going on around us. But sometimes too, it's just the phase of life that we find ourselves in. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's interesting. So we're coming into the holiday season. We're coming into the winter, where so much of the outside world is telling us, oh, be holly jolly. Let's engage. Let's really activate life and celebration and all these kinds of things. But we're also coming into a time of stillness, and so sometimes our body feels sort of counter of what we want internally, feels counter to what's going on in the outside world. But even beyond that is that, so, if we do take a more subdued approach into the season, sometimes too, there's and moving with the slowness of the season, that doesn't always mean that we're in winter. So last Christmas, just as a personal story, my father was actually very ill. And it turned out that was our last Christmas together physically. And so I've been really sitting with the idea of, how do I want to experience the season of this Christmas, this winter, this holiday? And will it be a winter for me like it was last year? Or will it be a spring in the winter, a newness, establishing something in a different way, but still allowing myself to float in the external energies of the world around me? It's really interesting when we ponder how we're able to show up even in the greater picture. So
it's really fascinating. I want to circle back with the archangels a little bit, because I feel like that's like a new set of synapses for me to contemplate. I think probably others as well. So when you're sort of working with the crystal bowls and invoking archangels, it's like, is it more personalized, or they're almost like vibrational allies that you're calling in? They're helping to amplify and reinforce certain tones? Because I often think of angels, people are sort of, petitioning for help of some kind, versus they're almost like a frequency. So you're dialing the frequency to connect with them, but not necessarily asking for some sort of intervention. It sounds like is the way you're working.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what a beautiful question. So the cool thing about the archangels is that their frequency is so far beyond our perception, which is why we don't see them, that we have an opportunity to approach them in different ways. And even though we don't see something, it doesn't mean it's not there. I can't see the wind. I can see the effects of the wind, but I don't see the breeze. So it's the same thing with a lot of these higher frequency beings, and tuning in and being able to connect with them in a meaningful way, I found to be really powerful. So in my practice, whenever it comes with connecting, for instance, to the frequencies of the archangel, what I'm actually doing is I'm allowing myself to step back And I begin to listen and tune in to a higher frequency that otherwise might not have been there. I open my own perception up so that I can hear. And then it's my job, sitting here with these beautiful bowls, to allow those frequencies to come through. It's not necessarily from a place of asking for something specific, though we can set an intention of, these are the things that we're looking to connect to. What information, what frequencies can you help us connect to better understand this question in this moment? Whether we're talking about freedom, we may want to bring in the archangelic frequencies of Michael or Michael, the really big cool dude who carries a spear and sword, and you don't want to mess with him because he's got the voice that will open the gates of heaven, and is one of the most well-known archangels, that it doesn't matter your spiritual or religious leanings, bents, traditions, none of it. Everybody kind of knows about Michael. And why is that? There's this deeper connection to this purity of the resonance that he embodies and that we can connect to. So there are totally different ways to generate the frequencies of the archangelic realm. And it really just depends on any given moment what we're looking to do. Because the bowls are made out of 99.999% pure quartz crystal, whenever I apply pressure, I'm actually beginning to engage the piezoelectric effect. And in science, we know that that's the movement of, literally, of energy, of voltage. We're beginning to actually create energy out of the air. And as you sit here, you can begin to feel the frequencies sort of move and shift around. And the archangels, I don't know why, but I don't know if they just really like it, but there's an interesting resonance that happens whenever we start to listen to the tones of the archangels with the bowls, these pure sounds.
I was laughing. I was thinking of like the dog whistle. It's like the archangel dog whistle. So
come on.
So I want to circle back with, I think, a little bit. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the reception side of this, and also breath, and how do we sort of, like, when we're engaging, not just in producing, but in the healing receptive mode, how do we open to more guidance, more healing, more clearing in our energy field as we're receiving a healing session?
Yeah. So there's so many ways that we can approach healing. And sometimes we approach healing very actively. Sometimes we approach healing very passively. And sometimes it's an accident. And yet, is it ever really an accident? So whenever we choose to take a more proactive approach and really showing up and kind of doing the work, as we would say, which is the journey. And isn't that what spirituality, life is about? It's about the journey itself. Because when we reach the destination, we're done, but that's another story. So as we're progressing on this journey of how we're showing up at any given time, and the ancients forever, everybody talks about the utilization of breath. So what about if we start connecting breath into tone? What happens if we begin to ride that wave? Well, here's some fun examples. So we had talked about in summertime, we had talked about that there's this fire, there's this excess heat that's kind of going on, right? To remember where I was. So in this excess heat that's starting to build up, we need a little bit of cooling. So this beautiful Vedic, the Satali breath, which is where we curl our tongue and we begin to breathe through the curled tongue to cool the physical system. And if you want, you can actually try it with me now. Breathing in and out through this curled tongue. That's one technique. Another technique is to breathe in through a curled tongue. Close your lips, put the tip of the tongue at the roof of your mouth, exhale, and then inhale again through that open mouth and the curled tongue. So you can define your own practice, but you can see how that it actually begins to usher in a little bit of coolness into the physical system, which is great because, as we said, summer connects with Uriel, and Uriel's he's a fun guy. He shows up and he suggests significantly that we do our work. There's a strong need for understanding the karmic relationship of all and how your responsibilities affect not only you and right here, right now, but in future times as well. So there's an intensity that does happen with summer. Now, as we move into autumn, so autumn, everybody loves autumn. The beautiful leaves, right? Archangel Michael, this idea of really understanding our presence and our place in the universe. And sometimes that can be an overwhelming thought to consider the immensity of it all. So why not cool the system? Why not bring us ourselves back into balance with alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana, where you would close off one side of the nostril versus the other. So you would close off the right side first, exhale through your left nostril, then inhale through the left nostril, hold that breath in, close off the left side. Most people do it in this particular hand style. Exhale through the right, inhale through the right, close off the right, exhale through the left, inhale through the left at your own pace. See, the alternate nostril breathing brings us balancing our brain, balances both sides of the body, the masculine and the feminine side, so that whenever we're in a state of anxiety, we're out of balance, it allows us to come back in and ground into this present moment, into the strength that Archangel Michael really connects us to. Because when we're strong and grounded, we're powerful and free. Now, winter, that's a really interesting season where we need to bring a little bit of stillness. And sometimes for stillness, people really want to tap into the stillness of winter. So a boxed breathing, an equilateral side of 4 breaths in, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding 4 breaths out, and repeating this box cycle is very beneficial. Yet sometimes people need to amp up. They actually need to have more life and more vitality in the winter. So sometimes that shining skull breath or the Kapalabhati breath in the yogic understanding is really helpful. And that's where we begin to have forceful exhalations with little tiny inhalations between each breath. You're bellowing the breath, you're bellowing the stomach, and that begins to excite and ignite your entire physical system to bring you back into a little bit more heated balance from the external cold. And then, of course, spring. This is one of my favorites. So, Raphael, connecting us into healing. I love this idea. It's a Native American breath. It's actually called Rising Eagle. And it's whenever life is returning. And so here, practitioners would begin to have an inhale, and as they squat and bend their knees, done from a standing position, you squat and bend your knees, bringing your breath in for a count of 12, raising your hands like a spread eagle's wings overhead, and then exhaling for a count of 12 as well, and allowing that breath to come back in to revitalize your body and your mind, reinvigorating your spirit. So those are some really interesting breaths that you can incorporate no matter the season, in any season.
Wow, you're fascinating, the connections that you make between different lineages and traditions. It's really illuminating.
Well, it's all connected, right?
It's all connected. Well, it's all there. I hadn't seen it all before. So I know we want to do another whole experiential demonstration here, but before we jump into that, maybe you can talk a little bit about how this could apply to any music that we're listening to, some principles for how do we make any music really into this kind of more elevating experience that you're describing.
Yes. I love it. So, the esoteric is that, and just kind of this innate understanding that we all have is that, well, when I listen to music I like, it feels good. You're right. It does. It does feel good. And science shows that. So science actually shows that when we listen to music that we like, there's a lot of really good things happening in our body. And so sometimes it's simply just turning on your Spotify playlist, turning on your radio. You're actually going to be reactivating these frequencies in a way that's very affecting to the body. So you can harness any response that you're looking to generate just based on how you feel. So one of my favorite quotes is actually by Beethoven. Not that I'm biased, but he says that music is a mediator between the mediator, not the meteor. So that would actually be kind of funny, the meteor between life. Music is the mediator between the life of the senses and the life of the spirit. So even he, who, by the way, whenever he transitioned, he spent most of his life deaf. He couldn't hear and is one of our greatest composers. So how did he do that? He did that through feeling, through frequency, and a deeper knowingness. So I probably trust what he'd say. which had nothing to do with meteors. But one of the things that, really connects us from a scientific understanding is that when we begin to affect our chemistry, our whole body shifts, our whole body changes. There was a study in Montreal that actually talks about how in your favorite tune. So, Stephen, right now, think of your favorite tune. What's your favorite tune in the world? It could be anything, like Led Zeppelin. It doesn't matter.
I'm blanking at the moment. Go ahead, let's go on. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go with Stairway to Heaven. I don't know.
Okay.
So in every piece of music, there tends to be this really cool payoff. There's something that we know is coming. There's this like peak experience that we can't wait to get there, and that's why when crowds and we're singing along, it's like when we get to this high note, it feels so good. Well, what's actually happening is that because we know that there's this peak experience coming, our body begins to release dopamine. Well, dopamine is that feel-good hormone. So the whole time we're leading up to this peak circumstance, we're actually beginning to flood our entire brain with dopamine. Well, once we get to this peak, another part of our brain, which is a region that's actually connected to the reward response, also engages with dopamine. So you have this massive flush of feel-goodness, simply put. So there's also other areas of the brains that, like when you're performing a social task that requires empathy or an ability to connect to someone else's feelings, they're actually the same parts of the brain that begin to activate when you listen to music that you like, music that brings you pleasure. So something as simple as turning on music and just passively experiencing it is already flooding your system with really good stuff. Conversely, if you want to engage in music, there's some even, more fun studies that have come out. So when people sing together, their individual levels of oxytocin increases. And what's really cool is that when they begin to improvise, so they don't know what's coming, they're going with the flow, they're letting go and allowing. There's this huge release of oxytocin. And as we know, oxytocin is connected with the idea of trust, with empathy, and with relationship building, which is something the world all needs right now, right? So, turn on your favorite playlist, listen to your vinyl record, start drumming, do a little dashboard drumming as you're at a stoplight, drive responsibly and dashboard drum responsibly. Because when you engage in music making activities, you're actually increasing this beautiful oxytocin, but you're also decreasing your stress hormone. Cortisol decreases, as well as your sensitivity to pain. So music can happen in any way that you would like to connect with it, whether it's passively, just listening and experiencing it, or actively engaging with it. And you're going to get significant, scientifically shown benefits.
Love it. Well, you're so brilliant. And let's go back to the bowls and really give people an experience that distills out so much you've been talking about.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit, just real quick, about Archangel Zakariel. So Zakariel is actually mentioned. He's a little bit more of a mysterious angel, but he is the angel of Thursday. So that's kind of fun. He has very close ties with Egypt, and he's mentioned in the book of Enoch and the Kabbalah. So when Zakariel, who connects us with the planet Jupiter, who, as we consider Jupiter as this very lucky planet of abundance and a very benevolent, he's the really cool uncle that everybody wants to have around. So whenever Zakariel is enacting his specific epoch or the age in which he helps to direct man, he brings about a piece of understanding that had been before missing. And it's so that we can recognize ourselves in our neighbor. And that just seemed like a really beautiful way to understand a little bit of more peace, a little bit of more connectivity, and personal prosperity by understanding where we all fit in with each other. So just take a moment to find your comfortable position, and let's listen to Zakariel.
what a beautiful offering.
Thank you. It's always interesting to listen because just as you or I never show up in the same way every day, um, our higher frequency friends, they always show up in their own current state, which is probably also a reflection of our ability to see or perceive them in any given time. So every time we connect, every sound, every session, it's always so different and so unique because it's a function of what's happening not only in our world but in the world at large. And so none of that it was completely gifted to us through these wonderful little sticks and bowls. And it's always interesting to see how it's reflected back. And it was what I like to note is kind of how did it feel? And it started very mysterious. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Why am I starting here? And you have to kind of turn off that thinking mind, but really interesting of how it progressed through these energies, these frequencies. Zakariel was really kind of leading us into these more unknown places. It felt like it wasn't as necessarily obvious as sometimes the messages can be. So it's always a gift.
Well, it is a revelation learning from you and just being in the presence of this majestic music as well. So I want to spend some time. We've already had a very rich time together, but yeah. I know there's much more to come. And so let's talk about that some. So we mentioned earlier that Charleene is going to be leading a brand new program, and it's really in the spirit of the holidays, linking these different themes together into a season of connecting with angelic wisdom and also uplifting ourselves in a season where sometimes there's dissonant energies as well. So the program is called Celestial Sound Healing, Crystal Singing Bowls and Angelic Wisdom for Holiday Healing and Guidance. You can see it laid out in detail at the URL Sound Healing Archangels, ARCH, archangels.com. It's going to just be a 4-week program and really sort of optimizes you for this holiday season. And it's going to come with some really cool bonuses as well. So let's, first of all, Charleene, just share a little bit about the overarching vision for where you're going to be taking people over the course of 4 modules. And then I'll read out the titles so you can give us a little preview of what's coming in each.
Yeah, well, I think the idea of really approaching life is that of a polymath, someone who's really looking to expand their perception of patterns, is how I like to approach life in general. So how we're approaching the course is that the course will be laid out basically into 3 main time rhythmic components. So the first portion, we're actually going to be connecting our brain, the intellectual side, and we'll be starting to fire some neural pathways and priming some pumps so that when we begin to move into that second section, the experiential, and actually listening to really deep diving into the frequencies, spending a half an hour diving into these angelic frequencies, the dimensions, how that affects us, how it's moving through us, what's happening in that moment, and what we might need. Also, who shows up in the room begins to impact the sounds that come forth because your biofield, your vibration is also felt. It ripples through the space here with the bowls. So always exciting. And then of course we'll lead into a Q&A so we can really sit into those experiential experiences that you've just come out of, but also then tingling with this new knowledge that's coming up. So it's I'm really excited about how the course is laid out, and really I like to understand. So the esoteric is great. It's my jam. But so is quantum physics. And I want to understand and really connect to the knowledge of why these things are happening. What are things that we know? What are things that we are yet to know? That's the beauty of magic, right? Magic's only science that has yet been defined. So we're going to be diving into both the science and the magic. Or the divinity.
Module 1, are they really different?
Yeah, exactly.
Module 1, Ground with Archangel Gabriel for Peaceful Holidays with guest teacher Trisha McCannon. Yes,
we're going to really prepare ourselves for this magnificent season. It doesn't matter what you celebrate. You can celebrate nothing because we're in the air of celebration. So whether you are an angel we have heard on high or a holiday Scrooge, it doesn't matter because there's always the opportunity to connect to this very grounded, energy that allows us to expand upward. So whether we're celebrating or not, we have to really ground into this space. And that's what we do so we can balance and prepare for the upcoming season. We're going to really be focusing that week on our lower are just our physical or more dense chakras that connect to our physical bodies, the first, second, and third energy centers. And that's where we can really establish a strong physical foundation, and it resonating with this really beautiful, enduring idea of peace on earth, goodwill to men. So,
Module.
and yeah, with Trisha McCannon, she's amazing. We're going to listen of how to better listen to the guidance and of wisdom of our higher angelic guides and frequencies and friends.
Cool. Module 2, harness Archangel Raphael's restorative frequency for well-being and balance during the holiday season with guest teacher Robert Gilbert.
Yeah, because who doesn't need a little balance and restoration during the holiday season? So this seems like a really good time. We're already starting to get into the flow, but of really being able to integrate the lower and the upper energy centers, that body and the spirit energy centers, to begin to touch heaven and earth. And I'm excited to welcome Dr. Robert J. Gilbert. He's a brilliant spiritual scientist and a great compiler of information that you're going to really, really love to get into. And we're going to be talking about crystals. Kind of appropriate since we're sitting in front of crystal singing bowls, and the healing power and how to tap into both from a scientific as well as an esoteric understanding of the healing power of crystals.
Module 3, strengthen your spirit with Archangel Michael for resilience and alignment.
Yeah. Like I said before, Michael is all about power, strength, and freedom, that personal sovereignty. Because whenever we claim our power, suddenly life begins to flow a lot easier. We're not tossed around in these tumultuous currents. We actually can guide and direct and captain our own ship into our own destiny. So we're going to be fortifying our aura with sound. We're also going to be exploring some ancient esoteric teachings and, of course, some modern day quantum science. And I'll be sharing with you my current workings with the archetypes of sounds. And that's where we're talking about how different intervals or the space between notes actually elicit different responses in our energetic bodies, and how to really connect and use intervals in real, powerful, and meaningful ways.
Fascinating. So module 4 is culmination with activate your pineal gland with Archangel Uriel for a deeper connection to the divine. And that includes John Stewart Reed, one of our favorite shift faculty.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Everybody loves John. So amazing. If you haven't met John, I can't wait for you to meet John. He is a brilliant mind, a wonderful artist in and of his own right. So great, man. And such a sweetheart. And that's really what we're going to be connecting into. We're going to be tapping into grounding ourselves into the heart so that we can really connect more fully into the pineal gland. And we're going to be doing a never before seen, it's kind of a bit of a revolutionary premiere of a visual sonic journey that we're going to be taking to powerfully stimulate and enliven our third eye center. And of course, John's going to be here and talking about helping us see sound being made visible as he's never done before, which is also very exciting. So always new and exciting.
Well, what an awesome program. Again, it's laid out in detail at Sound Healing Archangels, ARCH, archangels.com. So you get not only the 4 90-minute live sessions with Charleene and the guest faculty, you're going to get recordings of every session, video and audio, which are great to go back and do the same deep dives and experientials again. And you'll also get word-for-word transcripts, because you can tell Charleene packs a lot of good information into her time. And so you'll have those to go back and study and highlight, weekly exercise for home, and a Facebook community to deepen your experience. Plus, on the page, there are a number of extra bonuses to enhance your journey. There's a video meditation for Charleene that she actually did with her mother called Self-Renewal for Sensitives. You want to share a little bit more of that about that?
Yes, absolutely. So my mother, my inspiration, she's brilliant. My doctor mom, I should actually call her. Her work is actually in integrative medicine and with the emphasis in human genetics. So she takes us on a beautiful guided meditation with the help of the bowls that you can use any time of year, anytime you need to self-renew. So it would be perfect coming out of the holidays into the springtime, or really, truly any season that you find yourself in. And it's just a beautiful 20-minute reset that's absolutely divine. So I'm excited to share that.
There's also 3 audio tracks and ebook from Charleene. This Christmas Time Is Here music, so her whole rendition of Christmas holiday favorites, and Daily Presence at the Holidays Guide. Want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so these are three of some really beautiful songs that I love that I just wanted to share with you from our album Christmas Time Is Here. One of them is actually a Billboard Top 40 hit that you've probably heard on holiday radio, but now you can have it at your fingertips anytime you want it. I heard the bells on Christmas Day and a couple of other really beautiful and moving tracks. But I combine these tracks with this idea of an ebook that you can use, that you can print and fill out. You can actually fill it out on your tablet or iPhone, your mobile device, whatever's good for you. It's totally in your court. But it's 24 days of presence. It's kind of like it's like an advent calendar without the calories. So we're actually going through and connecting to real meaningful reflections on the day. And I don't know about y'all, but I love that idea, but I'm terrible at journaling. So I made this where it can easily be done in 5 minutes. And for all of those who really love to get in and soak in and really want to get into that journaling, God bless you. We've also included some extra writing prompts for you as well. So for all of our journal writing geniuses, you are well provided for too. So it's just kind of a fun reflection to help at the end of the season reflect back and see where we have come, where we have been, and maybe things that we want to cultivate or shift for maybe next year.
What a beautiful offering. On the page, you also see there's two more bonuses I want to mention. There's an Archangels in Modern Times. This is a deeper dive with Dr. Robert J. Gilbert and Charleene into archangels and the deeper understanding of that. And then I also want to draw attention to, we have one final bonus. That is our special bonus you get when you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. This gives you an extra incentive to tune in now. And if you're getting a yes to moving forward, then you're going to get crystal singing bowls with advanced sutras for chakra balancing. There's video and audio sound meditations from Charleene. So I want to share more about that.
Yes, it's one of my favorite ways to help lead people through the rebalancing for reintegration of your whole energy into your energy system. And so we move through each of the seven main chakras and then actually allow that energy to flow up in and around so that we can actually move back into the fullness of our whole system. And we connect with these ancient advanced sutras from the Vedic understanding and religion, and we put them into English so that carries a little more powerful understanding as we begin to stitch, which is literally what sutra means, these understandings into each of our energy centers to really enliven, strengthen, and engage our chakras in a way that normally we don't have the opportunity to do. And the cool thing with this offering is that we're providing it with both a guided meditation as well as without. So if you want to hear just the bowls and not think about anything, you have that option. Or if you really want to connect and be led through the entire series, that's an option for you too. And you don't have to pick just one because you get them all.
Amazing. Well, it's a great extra bonus. There's so much value in this program. I know it's going to be such a delight to participate in as well. So we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just 2 payments of $108, or you save 10% if you pay with one payment of $197. The course is going to begin November 28th, which is really optimized for the holiday season itself, and run Tuesdays at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. But even if you can't make those live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And plus all those extra bonuses. So there's some great testimonials on the page that really raves about Charleene and her work and her music and so much, that very multi-talented being. And again, it's all at soundhealingarchangels.com. That's ARCH, soundhealingarchangels.com. So what a rich hour. You're an
So much fun.
amazing download channel and an activator of this work. And so thank you for sharing this time with us, Charleene.
Oh,
Your gifts.
oh, you're so kind. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. And I love being with everyone whenever we have these opportunities to come together and connect. And I know, it doesn't always, we don't always recognize the profundity that sometimes just affording ourselves an opportunity to sit down and really reignite who we are, to release, to let go of, so that we can bring in and renew, that just that gift that you give to yourself is so profound. And what a more perfect opportunity than to do that during the holiday season. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, actually, by Joseph Campbell. If you know about the hero's journey, and he's really into archetypes and understanding how we move and weave through life through these beautiful series of patterns. Campbell says we must be willing to give up the life we've planned so that we can live the life that's waiting for us.
A poetic and perfect way to close. Thank you, Charlene. And thank you all for joining. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. And if you want to go further with Charlene, you're warmly welcome to do so at soundhealingarchangels.com. And you're going to get that special series of video and audio bonuses when you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So thank you so much, Charlene, for a beautiful hour. Many blessings.
It's my pleasure. Be well. Thank you.